As you probably heard, was the 88th Yortzeit, the anniversary of the passing of Rav Kook. I figured a few words to say. It's hard because he's this personality, the Torah giant that is so, maybe the word is all-inclusive. If I had to summarize his teaching, his vision, this achdut, unity, seeing the holistic view of all-inclusive, seeing all the different parts, all the different things that seem contradictory, physical, spiritually, body and soul, holy and mundane, the national, individual, the universal, heaven and earth, and every aspect. Halacha, Agadah, he was a giant of halacha, posek, the chief rabbi, ultimately of many places in Lithuania, and later in Israel, in Yafo, and then in Yerushalayim, and then founded the chief rabbinate. Poet, Kabbalah, every aspect of Torah, every aspect of human wisdom, also piety, an unbelievable lecture, speech, spokesman, politician, so to speak. When he was the chief rabbi, he had to deal with all the issues with the British mandate here, and different cases that came up, and problems over the coattail. It's endless. It's mind-boggling. But this is, it's not some, let's say, human talent. This was God sent for this special period. After 2,000 years, the Jews in exile. And now they're fractured, scattered, no national expression. What we read last week in the Parashat Shoftim, the four national institutions, the king, the Sanhedrin, the courts, the Kohanim, the Beit HaMikdash, and prophecy. All that does not exist, cannot exist outside the land of Israel. To be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation in the land of Israel, the Jewish people, where they express that oneness, that unity, that holiness of all of life, not part of life, not separate from life, not against life, but the holiness, the uplifting of all of existence, all of life, and it's all infused with goodness and holiness and justice, and to bring down God's name, it unifies all of creation, all the world. That was what was withheld from expression when we were in exile. And now the Jews are coming back to the land of Israel with the grace of God after 2,000 years, fulfilling these prophecies that they promised to Avram Avinu, the prophecies that we hoped for thousands of generations, praying for this day, and now they're being fulfilled. And it's a very difficult period, though. This return from what the rabbis, the prophets, called from returning from death to life, right? The exile, Yechezkel 37, we learned not too long ago. Open up your graves and bring you back to the land of Israel. The exile is likened to the graveyard. Jews are alive, Jews, the rabbis, scholars, but the nation, that national full existence I just mentioned, of a nation that lives with all of its national functions, kingdom and agriculture and commerce and industry, and all that is not also religious, with doing it and keeping and putting on film in the morning, but those very institutions are infused with goodness, with holiness, are run by justice, are run by moral ideals or divine ideals. That didn't exist. That was the graveyard. The Jews are in the national graveyard. The nation is dead. And now returning back from the stage of death to life, it's a very difficult period, challenging period, complex. And that God sends down leaders, Torah leaders, the giants, that pave the way, that illuminate the way. Throughout history, all of history is a unfolding stages of the nation of Israel, through different stages of development. So all of mankind, all of creation, go through this just like the individual, from infancy to childhood to adolescence to adulthood. And each stage needs its different guidance. It needs its different. You don't talk to a 10-year-old like you explain to an 18-year-old. Each generation, when there's certain special transition periods that God sends down, God sent these special souls to illuminate, to guide and direct, to understand the period, to know what's going on, what's the essence, and what is the message, what is the shlichut, the mission of that generation, how to bring it to practice, how to express that in, how to fulfill it in all the details. That needs special guidance. He sent down, we had the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai that revealed the inner aspects of Torah, the Zohar. Later the Ramban, later, again, not the dates, the Arizal, which opened up new gates of understanding, of wisdom, understanding the world we're living in. There are things that are needed in each period. It's not all the same. Like the Vilna Gaon writes, that every generation has a certain divine attribute, a certain divine measure, a certain aspect that is coming to, like it's a puzzle. Each time adds a different contribution to the full development of mankind. And God sends down giants, the Baal Shem Tov, right, in the beginning of Chassidut, the Vilna Gaon, the Ramchal, the Maharal, the Ramchal, the Rashash. And in this generation of the redemption, these generations of redemption, there's this God sent you, this special soul. Again, not just a talented, not just a genius of Torah, genius halacha. We had many geniuses, great rabbis, scholars throughout the generations. But God sent this unique, created this special soul of the totality. Now it's no longer a generation of another contribution. Of course, calls it the Dora Chatima, the generation of the stamp. Usually when you write something, you sign, you write letter by letter, right? One letter by letter. A stamp is, right, all the letters are together. The whole name is right there. This generation, the generations of the Geulah, the redemption, are the final stamp of all that was revealed, all that was illuminated, all that was come to expression throughout the generations, through us that we revealed, or through the nations. There's also things that are revealed by the nations that, roundabout, indirectly from the Jewish influence there, but it comes out through the nations. And now it's coming to a forefront. In other words, now the conductor gets onto the stage, and all the different parts of the symphony orchestra, each of the instruments that were, each one tuning up and learning their thing throughout the generation. Like it's divided into time, just like there's divisions in time and in space, different places, and also in different times. Each thing is another aspect, another a gem comes to the crown. And now the crown is about to be revealed, the full symphony orchestra of all the music and all the things together. And God sent down, again, this soul of unity, of this holistic totality of all aspects, not giant in one. Again, his giant, again, like I brought a few books, that rabbis, giants of Torah, that praised, I guess you can call it, praised his, or mentioned, focus about his greatness in Torah, the Talmudic giant, how much he learned 16 hours a day, his ability to, again, the sermons and speeches of Torah, to put together all the sources and to show aspects of Torah in greater illumination. Giants in piety, giants in the love of Israel, the giants in the love of the land of Israel. Each one would be worthy of respect, so to speak, of praise, a giant in each field. But here, a personality that has all those, that giantness, that grandeur of all the different aspects, the special soul, and with it comes the work of the, like I said, the Hatmadah, 16 hours, that learning Torah and the Volozhin Yeshiva. Ultimately, he didn't start there when he was younger, but he came very young to the Volozhin Yeshiva, the yeshiva founded by the Rav Chaim Volozhin, the student of the Vilna Gaon, which was called the mother of the yeshivot. Up to then, they had, each one would learn with their community rabbi, or their parents, their family, or the school local. But to have a dormitory, to have a place that all the giants of Torah come together to learn and study full time, that was the novelty. The Tziva Volozhin was the head of the yeshiva at the time of Rav Kook. Afterwards, he writes that it was worthy of founding the yeshiva, just as this Rav Kook should come and learn in the halls of this yeshiva. So again, we have I call it innate, divinely gifted talents and energies and holiness, but also fulfilling it, living it, learning and studying and piety and levels of holiness even from his youth, the signs of this high level of holiness and piety. And that ultimately enables to get to what we call siyata d'shmaya, this divine assistance, that he sees things that others don't see. In other words, you line up your eyes to see this, what God is doing, what, I'll read you maybe, there's a book by, I think it's an old, 9.5 Mystics, who interviews, by Herbert Weiner, interviews different rabbis, different schools of thought, Lubavitch, Breslov, At the end, he talks about Rav Kook, and he's talking to Rav Tzhuda. He used to learn with Rav Tzhuda Kohen Kook, the son of Avram Yitzchak Kohen Kook, just for the years in the Common Era. He was born 1865 and passed away 1935, 88 years ago. He says, this is what my father meant, Rav Kook, by trying to see the branches which extend into the world below from the roots above, to see the individual phenomenon from the perspective of the overall whole. Again, it's this view that, the view from the roots above, this view that doesn't start from the newspaper level, what's going on, but there's this perspective, a vision, an ability to get there, of Torah gets you to that point that you don't see the world like trying to put what's inductive or deductive, which is from the details try to get to the rule. But here you see the roots, the world of the oneness, the divine ideal. Because what I said before about everything is divided into what we live in the world of space and time. It's not all revealed at once. There's pieces, pieces, pieces. The world unfolds, so to speak. But there's a one that's revealed in all of this. There's a divine ideal of perfection, of the purpose for which he created the world. That already exists, so to speak. But we live in a world of time that you see a piece here and a piece here and a piece here that grows, right? Like I said, the child develops. It's the same person from birth, the same neshama. But historically, chronologically, so to speak, we see developmental stages. And so too the world, this divine ideal, this white light, is revealed through pieces and pieces. But there's people that get to the Torah vision is to see the view from the roots above. It's a different perspective completely. It's the certainty of the goal and the joy of knowing what you're dealing with. Otherwise, you live in a world of doubt of who says it'll be, who says the world will get better. Look at the world, look at reality, read the newspapers. Maybe the evil will overcome, the corruption and suffering and disease and earthquakes and global warming. The world it doesn't look so good. How do you know that the future is, right? Schopenhauer, why the pessimistic philosophy, whatever, why bring children into the world? But the view of Emunah that sees, it's not just some optimistic vision. Rav Kook and others, we believe that it'll be good. In other words, we're hopeful. It's hopeful. It's not wishful thinking. The vision that sees that goal, that is not limited to it's hard to talk about seeing above time, but maybe like as a building, I thought maybe once, like a building with different floors, like glass windows. The guy from over here sees what everyone's doing, so to speak. I don't know if it's a good metaphor, I don't know. But I just thought, like everyone sees only what's going on his floor. But the guy over here through the glass, he's seeing what everyone's doing. He sees the whole thing. In time, it's hard for us to imagine to be above time. But there's this, the divine ideal is one, and that unity, that ability to see that and then to stand from there to see the branches, to see the world of the branches. Not some mystic that's out, not connected to this world. He's cut off. He doesn't realize what's going on, the suffering, the evil. He's in this world of oneness and light. No, but he said to see the branches in the perspective of the whole. In other words, to see how they are expressions of, partial expressions. And then you understand the good of all, how everything is good, how the positive, and how it adds to, like Rabbi Akiva, right? Everything is for the good. Ish gamzu, right? Gamzu l'tova, everything is for the good. You see how everything is a contribution to that bigger edifice. If you don't see that, all you see is the piece by piece. That's where things are evil and corrupt and then no good. But in the higher sense, each piece adds a positive element towards that bigger expression of that full light. And the time of the redemption is now this big light, this big goodness is coming to humanity. We're reaching this point of history, the Jews coming back to the land, returning to the Beit HaMikdash and prophecy and levels of energy levels that are so enormous. And that's why the rabbis explain there is this, like the Gemara in the end of Sotah, page 49, the time of the Mashiach, there's chutzpah yizgeh. The footsteps of the Mashiach, there'll be chutzpah, brazenness. And the rabbi explained that there's this high energy requires very strong receptive, not weak people that are very, obedient, children that are meek and they're humble. They couldn't hurt a fly. It's people that, what?
The old, nebbish.
Okay. The exile, the galut mentality, broken over the back. There's a new generation that is not afraid of anything. The initial expression of that can be very bad. They break all the tradition of all that was holy, and now they don't care about it, and they're not afraid of anything. Gehenna, whatever, we're not going to give it. We want ideals, we want to fix the world, we want to energize people. And those are the ones, ironically, you don't have to be an atheist, in other words, but the atheism has this one of the functions, Rav Kook explains, and others, all the Barbanel, is to get rid of the cobwebs of the simple emunah, the just do what God says, and not robotic, but just listen and do. God wants, it prepares us to be, He gave us intellect, He gave us all the faculties to use them, not to subdue your intellect like Christianity. Just don't think, don't ask, don't question. But to use all the faculties, and with that to understand that the connection, to see the grandeur of the divine and the good of the justice of the absolute good that will come to the world, and how to bring that about. So there's people that break away, let's say, they reject the old, what they see as tiny and meek and old, and they want something bigger than what they're receiving. And they say, this is Torah, just do and don't ask questions. That's the Torah, unfortunately, that they received. So they reject that. Not because they're evil people, they're willing to suffer and sacrifice their lives for, again, ideals and communism or Zionism to dry up the swamps. So why can't you put on tefillin in the morning? It's so hard. Not because it's too hard. They think it's beneath them. They want so much more. They're ready for more. Divinely prepared. The generation of the Mashiach, it says in Yoel, in the commentary of the Malbim, explains how the generation of the Mashiach, the closer and closer, there's different energy levels of the, not because we did it, how do you say, the energy that was throughout the generations adds up. It's like the rabbis give the example of the midget that stands on the shoulders of the giant. He's smaller than Rabbi Akiva. We're bigger than the giants. No, but now we're this accumulated energy that the final generations of the Mashiach, they are those that can now stand up to this, returning the strong current, the energy that will return to the bayit of the third temple. It's not a simple thing. The returning to prophecy and energy that vitality, higher, that needs strong receptacles. So the God prepared, there's now these strong receptacles, let's call it high-level souls of looking for big and ideals, but unfortunately, the way Torah was presented to them, they see it as something beneath them, and they're beyond that. They want something big. They want the university, they left enlightenment, they saw the big world, the ideals and wisdom and science. And you tell them, don't mix your meat and milk spoons. You keep your spoons. I want to go out to fix the world, make a better world, mankind, and socialism. If they would know what Torah, and even those spoons, how that functions to bring about the universal divine goal of perfection, it's beyond any dreams that you even have can understand. But that they weren't told. They wasn't explained to them the divine ideals in the Torah, the mitzvah, that come into those details. They just had the details cut off from let's call it from the roots, the bigger ideals that come through those details, which the rabbis say, Rav Kook brings down in the letters from Tikkun Zohar, that in the future the Torah will become dry. I can read you what he says, but it's from the Zohar. Tikkun Zohar, he writes how, my dear brothers, the wise of the Chachmei Torah, the scholars of Torah, you authors and writers and influencers, we have also sinned, we have learned, we've studied, we chidushim, we navale, we learned, study, etc. But we forgot God and His grandeur. We didn't hear the voice of the prophets that called, and the rabbis throughout the generations, tzaddikim and chasidim, that called on the top of, they screamed at the kolei kolot, the top of their lungs, that ultimately the river of the practical Torah, the practical Talmud will become dry alone. If you just have the Talmud, the practical side of Torah alone, it will become dry. That's what it says in the Zohar. It says, woe to those that cause the Torah to become dry. What do you mean it becomes dry? Because if you take the branches without the roots, they dry up. He says, if we don't bring, again, it'll become dry when? If we don't bring into it, infuse it with the waters from above, the waters of the higher wisdom of Kabbalah, the Torah, the waters of the knowledge of God, the waters of pure emunah. In other words, if you just have the Torah, what the prophet yells at, right? Mitzvot anashim ulum bada. Just Torah is habit, ritual. That's what I was born. My father did this. That's what I do. This is what we do in our family. We're religious. If that's the level, the extent of your understanding of the grandeur of the divine, whatever, your kindergarten level, you're left with God is a guy with a white beard and hits people if you don't listen to him. then don't wonder why people that are a little more advanced say that you can keep your God and I'm going out to the big world, the real world. But this is really ridiculous. We didn't develop that understanding of the divine. In other words, taking it from the kindergarten level, it was fitting for kindergarten. But in first grade, 10th grade, 12th grade in university, you're supposed to develop just like you learn science and more and physics and calculus, you advance according to what you're able to understand as you get older. The picture of God remains in the kindergarten level, then it explodes. Then there's this atheism that rebels and says, I want more. They don't say that they want more. They don't know what they want. They don't know there is more. If they knew there were more, they would ask and get the answers. The problem is they need more. They're prepared for more and will not be satisfied with anything less than this bigger picture of God, Elohim v'uzo, the grandeur of the divine, the grand ideal for creation, what he wants. And what comes through these little mitzvot, these details, so to speak, look like little details. How these are the vehicles, the finite, final expressions of a grand super ideal of, again, revolution of mankind, that will change all the world. What the prophets talk about a little bit, right? You beat your swords into plowshares, and a different mankind of love and oneness and unity, harmony. But that wasn't exposed to them. So there's this generation that on one hand is idealistic, is building the land and coming to the land of Zion, which is what God wants. And God promised us and fulfilling and brings us back. On the other hand, atheism, heresy, rejecting Torah, the opposite of what God wants. So how do you do this? So God sent this, and the response of many was to reject, therefore, the Zionism. If Zionism is in the name of what they thought, again, they connected. To be Zionistic, to go build the land, you have to throw away the shackles of religion of the exile. You have to throw away the exile, but not the religion. The Torah is not part of it. But they associated the old and the small and just religious, the doing, and it just subordination to some old archaic laws. And we want to leave that behind and now become the new Israeli in Eretz Israel. So the response to the Torah world was to reject, okay, so you're keeping you want life and the bigger life, so to speak, and we stay with the Torah. And then two became more and more separate. When Israel was founded, what they called it the Yishuv HaYashan, Yishuv HaChadash. There was the new communities, the new settlements, agriculture, whatever, and the Yishuv HaYashan were those that came from Europe, whatever. They came to learn Torah in Eretz Israel, to die and be buried here. Just learning Torah, not something new, to open up settlements and to have agriculture. That's not for us. We just, again, learn and pray in Eretz Israel, the Holy Land. And these two camps became very polarized and separate. And then comes Rav Kook, again, this God-sent messenger of unity, of harmony, of revealing you're both two sides of the same coin. You need the Torah, the mitzvot, the divine. That's what gives the meaning and the value and the significance of the return to Eretz Yisrael. But in the higher sense, in the Torah that is not Torah or life, Torah, church or state, God forbid. In other words, it's the Torah that is the source of the neshama, the soul that gives meaning and purpose to the agriculture, the government, and it's all of that. It's a different aspect, understanding of Torah. It's the same Torah, but it wasn't learned in that perspective of that holistic. And that's what, again, this God sent, I repeat over and over again, that literally this shlichut, we all are sent from God to do a unique mission, a contribution to this world. Every one of us has a function that no one else can do. But here, as far as the leadership, like in the Torah, in the desert, they were the Sarei Asarot, right? The ministers of the tens, of the hundreds, of the thousands, right? Right, Moshe set up, the hierarchy of the ruling class, the rulers, the ministers of 10, of 100. So too, there's generation, like I said, in the interim period, the transition period, that God sends down these very special illuminators. And that's why Rav Kook, you'll notice that all his books are usually orot, right? There's orot, the lights in general. There's the lights of tshuva. He has the lights of Torah, the lights of holiness, orot HaKodesh. That is what he does. He comes to, again, sent to and learns and studies and reveals to us. That's why it's so important, not just to praise the individual giant of Torah, but what we can learn from that and to understand and to go in this path of seeing and exposing and understanding three things: the essence of this generation, the uniqueness and the content, and therefore also its mission, its unique mission in this historical process of world of development. And from that, how to actualize that, how to guide in practice the difficult things of running a state, a government, in the world of The modern world, technology, how do you bring down these big ideals and run a holy kingdom, which is our goal, which is what we're created, right? To be a kingdom of priests, like it says before the Ten Commandments in chapter 19 in Shemot, you will be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So that we were sent to, God doesn't leave us leaderless. Again, this is from the Gemara, it talks about it. Hashem Shatal, God plants in every generation leaders and guiders. But in this generation, it's not just another unique transition, it's the transition from death to life is the biggest transition, is the final, like I said, the Dora Chatima, the stamp, the final thing, the culmination of all the generations, of all now the final redemption, the final perfection, uplifting of all of creation, all of humanity, not just humanity, the animal kingdom, right? In Yeshayahu chapter 11, of the lamb will live with the Garzevim Keves, the lamb with the wolf, whatever Zev, wolf. It's a different world. In other words, nature will change. Nature will be elevated. Nature now is blind. It doesn't discern holy religious morality, but it won't be that way. In other words, nature will also be, the world, everything will function according to goodness, of holiness, of cleavage to the source. All the branches of life will be connected to the source, to the divine, to the absolute good. And that will bring light and life to everything. Ultimately, there'll be no death. In other words, that life so permeates from the source down to all the details, down to every branch. Even the branches no longer become petrified, die, or break off. They're so connected to the source of life that the body will become eternal. The Ramchal in Dat Funot explains how the Adam Rishon, today we have our soul, our spiritual side, the divine, there's different levels, the nefesh, ruach, neshama. Anyway, let's call it for now, this is in general, the soul, the spiritual side, the eternal side of us, and that's revealed through our actions, our personality, and our being, and then in the physical, through the body. But the body is temporary, we know, and it functions for a certain 120 years. And then the neshama continues, that's eternal. But we have this certain 120 years with which to manifest the holiness in this world. That's the whole goal, to not just to be angels in this world, to manifest that holiness in the difficult, challenging world of the body, of the what seems to be separation and branches that seem to be independent. How to connect all the branches to their source. And then the body becomes eternal. But our bodies are we have the body and the soul. The Ramchal says how the Adam Rishon, before the sin, his body, what was called the body of Adam Rishon, was like our neshama of today. His lowest side, so to speak, his lowest aspect of his existence was where our neshama is today. What his neshama was, it's hard to imagine. And we're coming back to not only where he was, but what he was supposed to do, to rise up to a higher level. We're coming back to a level of humanity, of existence, of being, that, like I said, it's not according to the standards of what we have today. It's way beyond that. Sometimes we limit the goal according to our vision of some utopian vision of the dream of what man understands, a better world. You have 100 IQ, 200 IQ, according to what you understand of this world, a better world, less disease, less suffering, less killing, less rape, less wars, or no wars. But that's still the negation of the negative. But the positive of the world, the whole system will be elevated, will be so infused with godliness, with goodness, with oneness, it's not the same world. That's why his body wasn't the body that we're used to today, but he had a body. But that body was like our neshama, that so connected to the soul. Actually, Rav Kook defines tshuva, that sentence I just said before. Rav Kook defines tshuva. Well, maybe we'll do this if we continue more on the writings of Rav Kook. Discuss it. I see that you're learning Rav Kook, like tshuva. But there's something that's probably not in there. There's another, how do you say, I don't know what to call it. There's the chapters of Orot HaTshuva, which again, Rav Kook didn't write books per se, or most of his books. I call them spiritual diaries. He would just have this flow of the neshama, this expressing this thoughts, ideas that just came to him and it flowed. He would just write it. And later, these notebooks, his son, Rav Yehuda Kook, and also the Nazir, culled from all these different things and took from all these different ideas that were written down, these outpourings of the soul, literally. We'll get back to this in a bit. And he tried to make it into like a systematic, that the Nazir put Orot HaKodesh. He took all these spiritual understandings and organized it into a systematic now we have 4 volumes of Orot HaKodesh. But they're all culled from these writings, these notebooks. Actually, they're really notebooks. There's some of them that he wrote in these, when he was in Switzerland, he had these big, strong notebooks. Not all of them have been printed yet, all of his writings published yet. We're still working on a lot. Now we're working on the letters from 1924, 100 years ago. Hopefully we're gonna, I do a little, how do you say, participate, have the merit to participate a little bit in the publishing. But most of the writings haven't been printed yet. But the main thing is Rabbi Tziyuda took these notebooks, so to speak, and Orot, he put together the topics of the nation of Israel, the land of Israel, the redemption process, the significance of this historical overview. I don't know to summarize it, but that he put in what's called Orot. This is the small pocket edition. It's easier for me to carry. Orot it's called. This is just Orot. But again, he didn't write the book, Orot. These are all paragraphs from all these different pinkasim, or these notebooks, or kvatsim. Also wrote the tshuva. Actually, he actually did start to write the first 3 chapters. He did write as a book. He said we have to write and explain the bigger view of tshuva, the different, the revolution and tshuva, what people think of tshuva and what he explains here. Anyway, in the back though, there's other paragraphs that were connected to tshuva that weren't included in the regular first printing. Anyway, what I bring it for this one sentence. He defines tshuva. תשובה היא השיבה אל המקוריות, אל הראשית, לחבר את כל ענפי החיים אל השורש אשר משם הם יוצאים. Tshuva is the return to the original, to the beginning, to the divine, right? The original ideal of one, to connect all the branches of life to the roots from which they emanate. So that's tshuva, but that's everything is like that. In other words, how to connect everything to its source, and give it its true meaning. Because then the details are no longer empty, dry, not only Torah and mitzvot, everything in the world, history, our lives. Lives are meaningless, doing this, detail here. But if you understand how each is a branch, an extension of a part of something big, it's a limb, like the body, there's different limbs. Take out the heart from the body, it doesn't do much, it's how much it weighs, and you measure it. But its significance is it part of the whole, the function in the whole system, the organic unity, then it gets its true meaning. So too, every detail it becomes meaningless and important and significant when understood in this perspective, like I said, the holistic view of seeing how it is a branch of something much greater. It expresses something much, again, especially the Torah and mitzvot. There it's more critical. In other words, there are people that didn't understand that, it becomes dry. The branches themselves cut off. This is it. This is what you do. This is what Jews do. Like I said, you don't mix your meat and milk spoons. You tie your strings on your shirt. What's going on here? That's meaningless, it's ridiculous, it's some pagan rituals. But if you understand that these strings are the final expression of some ideal, the holy, again, the Kabbalah, the deeper wisdom, the Zohar, the Arizal explain how that bigger ideal is revealed through the 7, 8, and 11, 13 ties or whatever going around. In other words, everything is exact. Everything is like this physics, the metaphysics of the world. It's not just random, the mitzvot. It's very exact. These details are the exact way, the system with which God's ideal, this name, this light, comes to the world and fixes the world and raises the world beyond what we know today. And that's the amazing thing, how it can come with these details. They look so insignificant. That's why Christianity, the first Christians, right? This is meaningless. We want ideals, loving your neighbor as yourself. But the details of the practice, God didn't mean to do that. Like Christianity, he said it's all allegorical. He didn't mean to actually fulfill these details, these rituals. But if you understand how these details are exact, like I said in physics, why everything has to be exact, or everyone brings the example of email, right? You listen, you leave out one little point, one little dot, or the letter, the mail doesn't get to its destination. The email has to be exactly that address. The world is, everything is exact, the way the body exists, the brain works, everything is the syntax, it's all built in order to receive life, to properly. You can't just change something and you think, oh, it's so mean. I'll just move a little part of the brain a little bit here. I'll close this. Life sustaining and then elevation depends on exactly the system. Why God did it that way, why we have 2 eyes in the front, and why we have, everything is explained. The Zohar talks about everything, all the details, so to speak, how they are vehicles of a bigger system. And then they become meaningful. But without that, they become dry and empty and meaningless. Again, the rabbis forewarned us that that's what it'll be if you don't bring into it the waters of the higher wisdom. And that's why Rav Kook's call and others, he says, throughout history, have called to learn the bigger aspects of Torah. Again, to get there, levels and levels. You have to go by stages. You can't just jump to the higher wisdom before you can, you build the skyscraper before you build the first story. But the goal is to have this, and this generation requires that bigger understanding. Like I said before, it's ready for, needs, and won't be satisfied with anything less than the bigger picture. What's it all about? Even if they don't know how the details, how exactly the tzitzit affects the universal perfection, elevation of all creation. But they know there is such a connection. There's a chapter in Orot Teshuvah, which, I think chapter 4, paragraph 10, that talks about that. The need for, I don't know if you have it all there. Anyway, if you have chapter 4, 10, I believe. I didn't get it mixed up. Let me just check. Yeah. He explains why the chutzpah, the time of the generation of the Mashiach, is because they want to know how the connection of the details to the bigger rules, the bigger ideals, the bigger system, and how the details are connected to that. But without that, they'll reject the details. They're meaningless. They're a waste of time. I want the big things. But as long as they know, he says later, that as long as they have the general understanding, we bring at least that minimum awareness that there is a connection, that the details aren't details. These are life-sustaining details, like the brain and the body, and everything has to be in its place. These are so important, these details. Then you'll have more of a love of Torah to connect to, then we'll have the tshuva to us and the world at large in general. So, there's a little bit in 2 more minutes. So, again, this soul that it's hard to describe it, maybe if we go on, to see more and more, what does this mean? All-inclusive. What does that mean, all-inclusive? It's all the aspects and all the, like I said, the intellect and the emotion, the holy and the mundane, the universal, the individual, the things that you seemingly are contradictory, that people have, a conflict of you can't have both. In the spiritual, man is looking for the spiritual, goes to some Hodu, whatever, India, you go to some, what's it called anyway, Buddhism, and you leave this world, nirvana, to escape this world, or you have the people that are very physical, material, hedonism, just focus on this world, that's all there is, the physical, momentary satisfaction, the physical, the spiritual, one or the other, it's either one or either or. The ability to, the divine, that we pray, right, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad, that God is one, they all emanates from that one source, and therefore everything is really one. The optical illusion, because of our minimal vision, or fractured vision, that sees the details, sees the branches, like I said, divided by space and time. Our senses pick up the moment. They don't pick up past, present, future. You just see what's present, you feel what's here now. The newspaper level, but that's not all reality. They're taking one slice of reality and thinking that's all, and judging everything by that and assuming that's what there is. That's not all there is. There's so much more, and more beauty. It's like a blind person that can't see all the colors and all the beauty. Rav Kook writes, in the future we'll have multiple senses. Now we have 5 senses, and we pick up the world that we think we know the world. With those 5 senses that we pick up and understand, and we extrapolate, we can get to things that we can't see, and then dark matter and this matter, we're getting more and more that there's more to the world than we thought there was, right? How much percent of the world is, what we see is like, I don't know, what percent is dark matter or antimatter? No? Most of it.
70% is dark matter.
Right, so we won't even see that there's more to the world, but that's dark. We think there's more beauty to the world, the grandeur, and that we have 5 senses to pick it up. In the future we'll have more senses, you'll see a different world. It's the same world. You were there a minute ago, but you had 5 senses. That's all you picked up. Like the blind person, he sees, so we're blind. We pick up only a limited vision of the present, of the physical world. What will be when we see the world in its harmony and its oneness, and when the curtain goes up, and like I said, and Rav Kook is, again, part of this developmental process to teach us and guide us and to show us the way to how to approach and to not just to dream about some futuristic thing, but how to get to that vision of that and how to, like I said, to bring it about, to understand what's going on today, the crises, the problems, the difficult, the challenges of the statehood, the kingdom, separate, secular, religious, Zionism, and how all that is part of this process of returning to this holistic thing, to guide all that, to direct all that. That needs this giant spirit from above, this view that, like the beginning of the path of the just, right? The person who's in the labyrinth, that he sees all the, from above, he can tell people how to go. They're in the middle of this path that it doesn't seem any way out. Anyway, I don't want to keep you now. We'll continue with Hashem a little bit more. And Tough. It's hard. Like I said, it's hard to talk about something that is so all-encompassing, but we started a little bit. So